G'day and welcome to the Four Walls podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and today with me is co-host George McNabb.
Hello.
And I've got a very special guest on today that I personally have followed her journey through real estate. Since she went out on her own especially, I knew about her before that as well, but someone I've followed really closely and I've really loved watching your journey because it's really cool. It's a cool story.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Welcome, Lisa Westerby.
Thank you. We're so happy to be here.
So Lisa, I guess like one thing we like to start off with is just to build a bit of context of like who, what, when, why. How did you get into real estate?
So I got into real estate, I was very young. I'm not from Auckland. I got into real estate at 19 years old and I kind of started at the bottom and worked my way up. So I started as a marketing administrator at Harcourts on the North Shore. I didn't really know much about real estate, but I always thought it was something that I really enjoyed doing. I've always enjoyed working with people. So I didn't have a uni degree, so I thought, what can I do that, the sky is the limit and I can kind of work my way up. So marketing administrator, and then I went from there to a auction coordinator to a PA role to a sales associate role, got my papers and then kind of went out on my own, started last year. So learnt all the ropes and then took the big step into the big world of sales.
Yeah, like that's a very like full-on grassroots journey, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, I guess it's like the traditional process, right? Which actually a lot of people don't do.
Yeah.
What I found really cool about that, though, is you can kind of see what the back end of the business, what actually needs to happen in order to make a sale happen. So I think it made me respect the admin, the other roles within the industry a lot more. But then also going into the world of sales, then people are always saying to me, oh, you can do that on your own. You can do that yourself. So I guess in my business, it's helped me because I know every sort of little aspect of the business. So.
Yeah. No, and I think that it's quite evident from our side as well, like the people that have a bigger picture, because the way that sort of they communicate with us and certain things that go on is there's a very obvious understanding of the back end, like from people like yourself, and that's always appreciated from our side. But I know it makes for a better final product. It does, So that's a really cool thing that you've got up your sleeve. Now, I'm going to bring you back because you did kind of jump straight over that. Where was the moment? Like, where was the light bulb moment of, I'm going to go to Auckland on the North Shore and go and work this PA job? Was that the first one?
PA, I was a marketing coordinator. Yeah. So I'm from Christchurch and I moved up to Tauranga after the earthquakes. And then from there, after I left school early actually, so I didn't finish high school. School wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I thought, people used to actually say to me, you're never going to do anything, you're never going to be anyone. So I kind of had this strive when I was younger that I'm going to show everyone at school, everyone who didn't think I could be something, what I can potentially be. So I actually did a tourism degree in the 13th year of year 13 actually that I didn't do. And then I moved up to Auckland to be a flight attendant.
Oh, that's cool.
That didn't quite work out, long story short. And then I wanted something with more of a routine. Can you believe it? More of a work-life balance. So I got into real estate, but it was just sort of
what
6 months.
Thinking?
I know. 6 months and 6 months into Air New Zealand, that didn't work out. So I was living with no job and no flat actually in Auckland at the time. And I thought, okay, what can I do next?
What year was this? Paint the picture for us.
This would have been, I was 19. Gosh, how old am I now? I don't even know. This would have been like 20... 18.
2018, okay, yeah.
Is that my maths right?
Yeah, no, sounds about
If I
right.
only work in sale, I'm good at selling houses, not maths.
GCI,
I know, gosh. No, yeah, so that was, initial thought was, I actually grew up and lived, like watching Living Channel and Escape to the Country and all of that with my mum. And my mum was actually the one that said, you've always had an interest in real estate. We used to be those nosy neighbours that used to see an open home flank, oh, let's just go and have a look, know. So I always thought to myself, that's something I could be really good at. So that's how that initial thought came about.
Yeah, that's really cool. So like there is an element of, I guess, authenticity to, yes, you did semi-stumble on it, but there was always kind of this underlying thing of, I could do this and this is something that would interest me. Because I mean, like, even from the guests that we've talked to, like both of them had no plan of going into real estate, like that we've talked to so far, So it's an interesting thing to hear that it comes from a different background,
Yeah.
But
I mean, I didn't really ever have the thoughts of becoming a photographer either. So
no, I know. It's the same like being here. Like,
what did you want to be when you were younger?
Yeah. The funniest thing is, not many people know this. I'm actually a qualified commercial pilot.
No way.
Yeah.
Imagine George in a plane.
Yeah. the most ADHD person you know flying a plane. It's not probably that great.
Oh my gosh, it's hilarious.
Can you take passengers?
Yeah, I just need to get my license current again. But yeah, anyway, so that's actually where my background was in flying. So flight attendant, I kind of know the similar situation. But yeah, this thing started to become too busy, so we got thrown into this. But I guess that's kind of the secret sauce to anyone's success, right? Is like they never like really decide where to go. They kind of just get blown in that direction, and then like people always say like, "Oh, you're so lucky," and it's like. Yes, to a degree. It's like people like get luck, but then it's always like knowing what to do with that luck. And you stumbled across real estate, but then you knew kind of how to push hard and get to where you want to be.
I'm gonna throw a cheesy quote out at you guys in relation to that because I've always resonated with it since I've heard it. But I think that there is no such thing as like luck in that sense. It's right time, right place, right circumstance. Like if you get those three things lined up, you're in a pretty good spot to be successful. So
I think the thing with real estate is everyone always touches on like the sky's the limit. Like it's one of the only jobs that it's a really good job that you can get, and if you put in a lot of work, it really does pay off. But I think it's interesting to see, I feel like when you work in a role like this, you've really got to want it.
Yeah.
I feel like if you don't want it, you're not going to put in the work and the effort to actually get it. So I feel like people always ask, why do you do well? I ask other people as well, but I think you can tell when someone's really passionate about what they do and when they really care about it.
Yeah.
Because that's when they're going to do everything that they can to actually get to where they want to go. And I've been in scenarios where, things haven't worked out and that's okay, but it's all about learning as well. And I think every time I've set my mind to something, yes, there's bumps in the road, but I'm always going to work as hard as I can to actually get there.
Yeah.
And when I've done that, that's when I start to see the results.
Yeah.
So I've always been, I've always thought about that, and everyone always asks me things like that as well. And I just say, look, well, you really have to want it.
Yeah.
If you don't want it, it's not going to happen.
And I think that segues on to a conversation we actually had before we even started this, which was like, you moved here and you had no networks, right? Like you didn't know anyone in Auckland. And the whole thing is like real estate is about networking and like who you know, basically. And so I guess like tell us a little bit how you kind of like built a database and built a real estate business that keeps coming without actually knowing anyone in Auckland.
Yeah, so I actually started as a sales associate, which I thought was a really good pathway into becoming my own agent. So I worked alongside Abby and Richard, who were a high-performing team in Harcourts and Epsom.
Yeah, shout out to them, by the way.
Shout out to Abby and Richard.
They're good mates.
Friends of the pod. Friends of the pod.
Yeah. I think they really helped me get to where I am today. Like I can honestly say I've done, I've worked hard, but I wouldn't be in the position that I am today if it wasn't for them, just given the roadmap that they gave me, what they taught me. So when I started in their team, they had me attending their open homes, but the first thing they had me doing was actually sitting down and calling through all of their old call lists. So I then had a lot of practice on the phones. I got comfortable on the phones because I feel like if you work in real estate and you're not on the phone, and you must be doing something else if you're doing well, but I feel like that for me is my biggest source of business, just calling through people and building more of a relationship. And as I've started getting into my phone calls more of today, it's more of building a relationship and talking to the same people, but not asking for the appointment.
Yeah.
Because I find if you keep nurturing the same people, I've got a list of about, which I've accumulated over all of those phone calls and then into my own business and my own open homes of about 500 people. It's not a lot, but they're people that I talk to on a regular basis, but just asking them how they are, what they're up to. I jot notes down on them, if they've got kids, they've just turned 5 the next year. Oh, your son must be turning 6 soon, actually more personal questions so that when they decide to make a decision, then they're going to think of you because they're going to go, oh, that person's actually really nice.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me, it's not so much about this. I mean, the sales is awesome, but it's not so much about that. It's actually building a relationship with someone and then trying to help them when they're ready. So in terms of that roadmap that I've had, I've actually learnt the structures in the business, but I've actually learnt to connect with people a lot more over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good way to put it. Like, it's actually really funny, Lisa, because that's actually very similar to like our relationship as well. Because I'm actually Lisa's account manager, like at Blade Scenes, and that's the same thing. It's like when it's us talking, there's not like really, it's it's check-ins. It's like, hey, like how was golf? Like blah blah. It's building a friendship and building a relationship so that I can help you be successful in your business, and then same vice versa. It's just like a mutual beneficial thing. It's not like this. There is no real need for the hard sales push, like if you don't want to work with us, that's fine. Or if you don't like need anything else, that's all good. And I think that's a good way to conduct your business.
I also think that's like a real like Kiwi thing.
Yeah.
Is like people in New Zealand don't necessarily want the hard sale. They want someone who is relatable, who can have a yarn with them, who's funny, who's charismatic, right? And like you can just tell that like almost all the real estate agents that we know who are super successful kind of just have that spark, right? That you can
If
just
you're knowledgeable, it's even better.
yeah, exactly. It's like,
Absolutely.
but it's like, let's be honest, who really needs knowledge? Like, at the end of the day, like, you can limp through, just by being a great communicator and, a person who genuinely cares about that person, that other person's situation. So, that's pretty much it for that
And
part.
not to like go too deep down this road, but like the thing that I always find really interesting, Lisa's not like this because she's a unique situation where you are just
I'm
like the
unique.
solo one, you are doing the solo journey,
Yeah.
and it is a grind. Like I've seen the difference between people like yourself who just live and breathe that solo grind. One of the previous guests we had on, Ben Ryken, same thing, solo grind, like it's very admirable what they do because it's like a lot of work. But when you work with these teams and these things with bigger, that need for the relationship thing up the top of the iceberg is so much more important because underneath they've got these amazing people and like operations managers and like those people that actually kind of bring the whole thing together. And so with real estate you see a lot of the tip of the iceberg, but there is so much that is underneath that you just don't ever really get to see. It always makes me question. I wonder if vendors even know the names of those heroes, like unsung heroes that are doing all the real.
I'll tell you what though, like in Lisa's business, she's probably wearing all the hats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think my next step for me is hopefully to start a team because obviously you want to build and you want to grow, and I think I'm at that stage in my business now where I'm just about to finish my second year on my own out of the team, and my next step is to obviously build more of a business because look, I love what I do. It's awesome, but you do have to take time out. I think especially this year, like I'm the sort of person that I care a lot about the results for my owners, and I'll have people say to me, "Oh, it's not your monkey. You can't take it personally." But I think it's almost hard. You really want to, in a market like this, you really want to, give as much as you possibly can. And I think in this market, there's only so much you can do.
Yep.
So it's hard to not take it personally when you're at an auction. For example, I had one the other day where no one turned up. And it means a lot to the owner, and it's almost hard to not feel like is there more I could have done, even though I know for a fact I've done everything that I possibly can. And you still feel
Like somewhat liable, right?
Somewhat liable.
I think we can relate to that as well because we're obviously like responsible for the marketing, and there's nothing worse than I think in your position and our position than bad market conditions because like you just can't do anything about it. Like when there's bad market conditions, you can do everything perfectly and it's just not going to happen, and so that's definitely something that probably is quite a struggle, I imagine.
Sorry,
you go.
Touching on your year, I suppose we had no intention to talk about this, but I just wanted to maybe touch on it. You obviously won the Josh Regan thing.
I did.
Yeah,
Which is like
so excited.
Which is like, it's a pretty big thing to win, right? And
Yeah.
like, there's some like huge names who have kind of won it before you. And I kind of just wanted to touch base on that. Like, it's your second year out on your own and to win such a like cool award, I suppose.
That was awesome.
Like, do you want to just kind of touch on that a little bit?
So Josh Regan, just for anyone that doesn't know, is an award where it's called Changed Agent. So what it is you get applications from all over New Zealand. They've got it in Australia as well. And then Josh Regan chooses 4 agents to then go to his blueprint down in Queenstown and do a 15-minute speech in front of 100 to 150 agents from all over Australia and New Zealand about their story and how they feel like they've grown over the years that they've been in real estate. And then what happens is everyone votes in that room and then decides who's actually, who they think deserves to win. I think it's a $17,000 cash and prizes, but the main thing of that part is it's actually a one-on-one session with Josh himself to sit down and actually structure out your business. So a lot on the line, so it was really nerve-wracking, but I went down there and I think, I actually made it my goal because at the end of the day, everyone's got a great story, right? And I thought to myself at the start of that blueprint, it's more or less a popularity contest, to be honest. So my intention when I got down there was, do you know what? I'm actually going to make it I'm going to make it my job to actually talk to every single person in this room before I stand up there tomorrow and let them know that I'm doing it and have a conversation with them and see how I can relate to them before I go up there and kind of implement them into my story. at the end of the day, when you go up there and tell your story, the votes that you're going to get is when people are going to start relating to you and go, oh, it's funny she says that because I felt that before, or, I felt that before. So I kind of wanted to get to know everybody in that room and say, okay, well, how can I make this more about not only me, but make them, relate to me and see how I can help them in their business. So that, the coolest thing for me, I think winning that award wasn't the cash and the prizes. I think it was more about, the networking and being able to stand in front of people that I admire. There were agents in there that I've looked up to, since I've started, to actually come up to me at the end of that and go, that's really cool that you've gone and done that. That to me was more than anything.
Yeah. And that's probably your IP as well in terms of like what makes you a good agent, right? Is being able to read the room and kind of like get on someone's level. You could call yourself a bit of a chameleon, you can like just change yourself to kind of like get along with somebody. And it's like, I've seen that in the way that you act with your vendors. And, going back to, you being on the phones, I remember seeing you in Abby and Richard's office with your geeky headset on. Like the cool
you didn't have one of those.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to need to get one of those for the podcast, and we're just going to insert that somewhere.
Everyone's like, why don't you switch to AirPods? I'm like, no. It's got like this lodgy headset. It's like you're working at McDonald's, can I take your order?
Yeah, that's all right. We have them at work too.
Yeah, George made me put one of those on this year.
Oh, no, they're so good.
It's just humbling,
Yeah, it is. It is quite humbling, like especially after you're, like out gunslinging for a bit, and then you go back and you put your little headset on. You're like,
oh, no.
Can I take your order?
Yeah.
Take your order.
There must have been something that quite rewarding about your little strategy going into that, introducing yourself, and that actually coming through and working. Because that was like, I remember you telling me about that like week after you got back, and I was like, yo, that was genius.
Yeah, I was like, if I get to know everyone, it's going to be fine. But also I think it's a matter of, I wanted to get to know everyone in that room as well. Josh Vegan is great for training, but it's also great for networking. There's people there from all over New Zealand and Australia. So if they know who you are and say, for example, they've got business to refer to you, like if they feel like you're someone that's genuine and actually is there to get to know people and help people, then who's going to get the business?
Yeah.
So I think it's, I actually love hearing everybody's story and hearing what everyone's, challenges are. And what I'm finding, I'm doing a couple of speeches at the moment. I just went down to Harcourts and Holmwood and did a speech down there. And what I kind of want to implement into those speeches, I feel like there's a lot of agents out there that do those, but they don't talk about the struggles in real estate.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's actually a really huge part of the whole business because it's all about mindset.
Yeah.
The amount of times I go into work and I'm like, I'm not feeling up to it. I'm drained. I've worked, until 9 o'clock every day this week. I need a day off. It's mentally really hard.
Yeah.
And then obviously at the moment the market's, it's tough. It's hit and miss at the moment. And when you do have those misses, as I said, it's hard not to take it personally. And when you're already feeling down, it's a mental battle with yourself, sort of saying, when you're relying on yourself with your own income, you go into work and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got bills to pay, and I'm only relying on solely me.
Yep.
Running your own business on your own. It's really hard. But I think it's also, at the same time, it's so rewarding when you're actually doing a good job. Yeah. So you've just got to think more about the good parts rather than the bad parts. But I feel like people need to talk about them a little bit more and how they face them and how they manage them.
I guess I was going to jump into there and say, like, do you have kind of tips for people for dealing with it when you've got those like low moments? Like, how do you keep trudging through when you've got these campaigns that are like quiet and you're doing everything you possibly can? How do you stay mentally positive?
I am huge about taking a day off. I know there's so many agents out there that don't, and I actually did that. When I came out of Abby and Richard's team, they were always said to me, you have to take a day off. You have to take a day off. And when I had my first year on my own, I didn't take that into account. And I said, I'm so busy, I'm working all the time. And, you always want to be on the floor. But what I found is you're better off working 6 days a week at 100% than working 7 days a week at 50, 60%. Because if you're going into a listing presentation and you're not 100%, then you're most likely going to miss out on that business. Whereas if you take your day off, and people understand, you're not supposed to work all the time. Exactly. And I find, what I like to do is I like to set my owners up to the point where if I list their property and I send them a video right after they list with me and it's got what to expect over the next couple of weeks, and something I put in there is Friday is the day that I take off.
Yeah.
If you desperately urgently need me, then I'll be on call. If there's offers being negotiated, then I'll be there. But this is the day that I take with my friends and family, and everyone understands.
They respect it, right? And it's a part as well where like I mean, I was guilty of it as well. And in my journey is like setting those boundaries up front with people and saying like, this is how it works. And I think that's such a little nugget there that you've just dropped in, is kind of like giving people the what to expect through a campaign. Because too often people kind of are like, okay, so what's next? I mean, I've been a vendor as well, right? And like I know where I'm kind of going, okay, so what's happening now? What's happening this time? And it's like, you don't want to be left in the lurch. Communication is key. And that's something as well, like we're guilty of at Blades Ends too. It's like sometimes we don't communicate. And everyone's got that, that flaw.
Yeah, no one's perfect. Yeah, and then like on your days off, you come and do podcasts.
I forgot.
Do you know what? At the moment, we've switched our open homes just to Sunday.
Oh, cool.
Just so
That's
we've now, I've switched. Normally it switches from Friday to Saturday. If I can take half a Friday and Saturday, I will.
Yeah.
Because I think you do need that at the moment. And as it's, when you're in the quieter times, you take a little bit more time off, take time to reflect and understand why you're doing it. And then once you go back into it, you've got all guns blazing.
Yeah. And I want to just like have a little pin in the pod in that specific thing, because that was one of my favorite things I've ever heard someone say, is that 100% thing, because I can relate so much to that from my job that I used to work before I worked at Blade Scenes. It was a situation where I was just trying to wear too many hats at once, and real estate agents do work this 24/7 schedule, and so I was trying to match that the whole time, of like give all my clients the best service I could possibly give, which meant being available at all times. And then so quickly I realized, one, you then set an expectation that you're going to do that, and so they will email you and call you at like ungodly hours. But then you are in this constant situation of giving everyone 50% instead of giving 100% through my work week. And that's one of the things I have to give credit to George, is when he brought me into Blade Scenes, he put me in the position where I can actually be Josh, 100% of Josh. And now all the clients get the 100% of my service, rather than everyone like all over the show getting like 60%. Yeah. So.
And you can tell when I've been through open homes, as a buyer and everything myself, so you can tell when someone's not at 100%. You never know who's going to be walking into your open home, and you want to be able to make sure that you're fully there and you're fully committed to what you're doing that day. Because going through the process, you want to make sure that it's a really special moment for people.
Yeah.
Buying and selling a home, it's a lot, and people do get very overwhelmed. So you want to make sure that you're content and that you're, to that point where you can kind of, relax them and give them advice and help them throughout the way, rather than being a little bit agitated and, tired and, not being on that level where you can actually help them all the time.
Well, just to segue away from that, because there is a point that I wanted to talk to you specifically about, because it's like, this is not something you and me have ever talked about, but I'm curious of it. Are you familiar with imposter syndrome?
No.
So imposter syndrome is when, it's something you might be even going through without even knowing it. But imposter syndrome is basically when you make it to a certain point and then you start questioning your abilities of like, wait, why am I here? How have I made it to this point? I shouldn't be the one that's successful. Why are people listening to me? Is that something that you felt like you've struggled with in your first 2 years?
All the time. I'm the sort of person, and I think it goes back to where, when I went through school, as I said, I've always had that thing in the back. And this is the thing that's always pushed me is I sat down with, I just got taken to the principal back in school. I was, to do. But he looked at me and he said, you were never going to amount to anything.
Oh,
and that
dark.
was something that was
from
said to
the
me.
principal. I see. When you said that before, I assumed that was from like some other like 10-year-old. Like,
No, I mean, look, we all go through hard times, right? And I think that's something that's always stuck with me, and that's the reason why I push myself to the limits that I do. But I think it's always that sort of thing where I always feel like I could be doing better.
Yeah.
No matter where I am in my business, there's always more to be learned. Like the amount of times our sales manager sits down with us and saying, how do you feel like you're in with your business? That's stuck at that same number. I think it's like a 6 out of 10 for the last 2 years, because I always feel like there's more I could be doing. And that, I think, to be fair, that's got a lot to do with the market as well. I think 2021 was really, really hot, but I think what I find is I compare myself to people that have been doing it for years and years and years, which I shouldn't be doing.
No.
Because I think what I try to do is I try to sit down and just take myself back a little bit and go, look at where you were 2 years ago to where you are now. The person that first started out, when I first started real estate, I said, like, as my own agent, I said, if I do 10 sales this year, I'm happy with that. I did 21 sales, which was incredible, but I still wanted more. Do you know what? And I'll always be that person. But it's a good and a bad thing. Number one, as I said, it's a mental thing. You know, it does bring you down because you always want to be doing more. But I think it also pushes you further and further and further and further into your business to actually do a better job.
Yeah.
Because you've got those goals in mind, and no matter if you've achieved them, you still want more, and you're still going to put in the effort. You don't tune out after you've done your 10 sales and go, oh, you know, I've achieved my goal. If you get to 10 sales, you go, okay, now I've got to do 20.
Yeah.
You know? And I think I got that from Abby Davis.
Yeah, she's definitely she's on another level.
Every time she's like, if you get to this level, you need to do more than that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, cool. So I've actually been brought up on that, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But she taught me, and that team taught me that you just have to keep going and going and going and going.
Well, it's real interesting, like that conversation versus the last conversation we just had. It sounds like you've got this really like interesting balance between when you're on, you know, like you're like a turbocharged supercar, you know, but then when you do make sure you put aside that time to. Lisa is a golfer.
Badly. I'm a bad golfer.
But you know, like you do the things that kind of keep you and keep the mental health in check and all of that stuff. And I think that's so super, super important. So that's really awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you something about one of our favorite topics. Social media. Yeah.
Janks.
So with social media and the like real estate industry, how are you perceiving like the difference between, I guess, when you were working in Abby and Richard's team versus 2023 real estate agency? How much of it is an essential tool these days?
I think social media is essential. Should you spend a whole lot of time on it? No.
Yeah.
You know, I think you can do it smartly. Yeah. Like I'm not going to go, I see people all the time, you know, freshly into real estate thinking, you know, spending probably an hour on creating a just listed Canva picture. You know, that stuff's not going to get you business. If you're spending an hour on that, then don't do it. You know, I think it's more doing it smarter, you know, being more personal on social media. So what I want to do is I really, you know, just listed and just sold, you do them because you want people to see that you're doing stuff. But
it's an online CV,
it's
right?
Exactly. And then what I
Boring.
want what I want people to see on social media is that you like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if you've got someone, you know, I've got a couple of people that have touched base with me from overseas or from, you know, Australia or from different parts of New Zealand where they can't physically come and meet with you. And they want to do, I know for a fact, you know, if I was to sell my house, the first place I'm going is Instagram.
Yep.
That's the first place I'm going
and I
to
say
do
the
some
same
research.
thing to all the people that talk to me about it as well. It's like people forget that our age demographic. Sorry, George. No, but, even George, like he's massive on Instagram as well. And it just shows you like that is where the authenticity check is these days.
100%.
Like I don't think that it was going to make or break your business in terms of like, you know, that there is definitely like a good argument to be made around lead generation in there. There's definitely a good argument to be made around like maintaining sort of communication with your database. But I think that is going to become the final check. When someone is choosing a real estate agent, for me, that is going to be the final decision maker.
That is me too.
Like when I see people come in and do like things for my house, because I like in probably 2 to 3 years I'm going to be selling my house, and then you just bought a house as well, so I imagine you're probably a similar timeline.
Yeah,
that is the absolute deciding point.
I guess that kind of steers us into the question. The little secret question, right?
A curveball.
Yeah. So what we
it
do
around
is
social media.
Yeah. So we've got a little theme rolling. I'll let George introduce it. That's
so,
his bag.
Yeah. So I actually stole it from another really successful podcast. If you ever do want to listen to a really good podcast, it's called Diary of a CEO. Well, no, this one too, but I'm not going to plug my own podcast. It's called Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett, and there's
I've heard of that.
There's amazing. He's got amazing guests. Like he's like probably number one on Spotify, but he does this on his podcast. That's why I thought it was a cool idea to bring here. So what we do is we ask the previous guest a question for the next guest. So we have a question for you. Actually, yours is reasonably...
Yours is a pretty good one, to be
pretty
fair.
straightforward.
The person was playing kind of nice.
Yeah, so
I want you to get a bit more spicy with your one.
You got to play dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
We want some clicks. We want some engagement.
Oh, God.
So I'll let Josh read it out.
Yeah, so the question was, how do you focus on improving your own social media instead of focusing on what others are doing?
the social media is supposed to be about you, you know, and what you like to see. And I think, you know, you've got to do it in a way where I look at my social media and go, okay, well, what would I want to see? You know, you want to see videos, you want facts, you want, you know, I do look at other people's social media and go, okay, what else could I be doing? Mm-hmm. But I do it solely, I just don't focus on what other people are doing. I focus on, okay, I want to come across as me over the camera. And that's all I want to do. I want to feed facts, I want to help people, and I want to show kind of everyone that real estate agents aren't, you know, they're not people. They've got a bad rep.
Yeah.
To say the least. But I want to come across as just who I am and a person, and you know, someone that people can relate to and talk to, and you know, as an advisor, more or less.
Yeah.
Rather than
that's a real good like thing that sets it apart. And honestly, that's one of the best powers of social media is that if you can't fake it. Like if you jump on video, like you can with like photos and stuff, but if you're jumping on video and you're going to that level of authenticity,
and I'd say like as well, like you do a great job of it too, because your bubbly personality flows through, and like, you know, you're always laughing and smiling, and like that's kind of just who you are.
Oh, so guys.
So I think like you do a great job of putting that out there on social media, kind of like, you know, one of the better agents out there with their social content. So that was a good question for you actually.
That is a really good. I like that.
Really like segued you nicely there.
Yeah,
but
I like that.
That whole sort of discussion is a really good focal point for you, and you've obviously done quite a good job with your organic social media. But I mean, it's fairly evident if every agent was just copying every other agent, everything would just be market updates. So
it's also the things, you know, like obviously you do digital marketing, but free appraisals. You know, I know I was thinking about this the other day, and you know, going into my calls and onto social media and all this other marketing that we do. You know, if someone rung me and cold called me and said, "Oh, can I get through your house and appraise it?" I'd be like, "I don't know who you are." You know?
Yeah.
And but if someone rung me and said, "Oh, you know," or I saw someone online and they, you know, I knew who they were, and then they rang me and they were like, "Oh, hey, how's the house going? Like, I saw you purchased a house 6 months ago. Like, how's that all going? Have you done any work? Have you settled in? Like, how are you like in the area?"
Yeah.
Just ask me more about that. And then eventually if they kept calling me, and then I'd ask them for the appointment. And, you know, all these people going, "Oh, free appraisal, free market update." Like, I feel like it's not genuine. Everyone's doing them.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do something that's you talking to a camera, or you're, you know, you talking about your struggles or your success, you know, I post the most engaging things that I get on social media are big milestones that I've hit.
Yeah.
Because I think it's, you know, I don't think anyone else should be doing other people's social media, if I'm honest. You know, I see people have their people that are doing their social media for them, but when I'm doing posts, I write a story about them.
Yeah.
You know, what happened in the campaign, you know, how did it go? You know, obviously with the change agent, Josh Vegan thing, you know, I wrote this whole long story about the process, and it was more about, I watched the girl who won it last year, and I said to myself, you know, I really want to do that. That would be awesome. And, you know, I remember I got back from Josh Vegan the year before, you know, last year when I didn't do it, and I started writing my speech as soon as I got back next year, without even knowing if I was going to do it, you know. And I wrote that in my, you know, in the content with posting my change agent video saying, you know, I've just won this. It was awesome. It got like 300 likes or whatever it got.
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
it gets so much engagement because it's you talking about your journey and more about what you want to do and your goals that you've set and how you've got there, and that's the stuff that people really actually care about.
Yeah. I mean, like from a more scientific background, when what you're talking about is content pillars, and content pillars are essentially like your genres on social media, and that is one of your content pillars, is like your success stories and stuff.
Yeah.
And so your audience obviously really likes that genre that you're posting, and so it's really good to be in tune with that stuff and know like what things are going to perform better. Like we said, I'm not against doing just listed and all of that. It's essential. Like it's your rap sheet, you know, so do it, but it's just being authentic and having some other stuff. Don't just fill your feed with just listed, just sold, just listed. That is the ugliest Instagram you'll ever see.
You know, the thing is like, actually that's been the theme across all three of our guests today, is everybody's has said like, I am where I am today because I've just been authentically me.
Yeah.
And you know what Dave said at the start was like, you know, you're not everyone's cup of tea, but you know you are like, but people really like you for who you are, right? So just leverage off who you are, be authentic, and you know good things will come, I suppose.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes that I heard this year was, "It is very impressive how far you'll get in life just being authentic and being a nice person. And it seems to be pretty true.
100%. And do you know what? It's actually, people say, how do you stand out in real estate, right? It's actually not that hard.
Yeah.
You know, if you guys have gone through open homes before, if you've gone through the process of selling or buying, it's so interesting to see how different people work.
Yeah.
You know, when I went through a couple of houses, there were very small portions of people that actually called me after I went through and actually, tried to develop a relationship. I think there was probably one person out of like the 10 that I went through that actually helped me to try and find something. And it's so interesting because we've got processes. I don't know if it was just because I said I was in real estate. They were like, she's never going to listen to me, But I think it's so interesting to see how different the processes are and just go, okay, if I'm just a nice person, if I just stick to a structure and then I actually help them in a way. And I think it's more along the lines of when you go, as a first home buyer, that's such an overwhelming process. I like to work a lot with first home buyers because as I said, I relate to them a lot and I've just been through the process myself. And I think that helped me learn a lot on what I would have liked in that process. So, after you go unconditional to up to you settle, a lot of agents tune out and just go, I've got paid. I'm now, they can worry about it. But I think something that I've kind of implemented into my business is, okay, that was the most overwhelming process of it all. So I want to go back and help them and say, hey, look, well, do you know what you need to do from here up until you settle?
Yeah.
The amount of people that say no clue is ridiculous. So, and that's an extra little piece of service. You give them a call straight after they go unconditional and say, okay, well, you're going to have to meet with your lawyer, look about setting up your internet, everything like that, meet with your lawyer, you're doing a pre-settle inspection, what do you need to expect in the all of that, and the amount of reactions that you get, go, oh, that's actually really helpful. Send them a booklet, you give them the gift. It shows them that you actually really care about the process and them, and you're actually really happy because it's huge. People save up. I saved up for years and years and years and years and years and years to buy my flat. It's so huge. Like, it's a massive milestone, and you just want to make it that little bit extra special.
Yeah.
So that they remember it.
It's those 1% better situations that you're talking about right now that make up a way better product at the end of the day.
100%. 100%.
Lisa, we're gonna have to get you back on the pod again, I think. That was awesome.
I just talk a lot.
Yeah, no, you do. But it's like, so do I. So.
Do we have another hour?
No, unfortunately we don't. Which is, we are gonna have to wrap it up there because we are sort of running over time. But I'm definitely keen to get you back on and let's set a bit of a goal of you keep going and then hustling,
we'll touch
and then
back with you.
Yeah, and we're gonna get you back on and see sort of how your journey's progressed.
That would be
next
awesome.
time. So yeah,
hoping to get a PA and a sales associate.
Oh,
yeah.
there
So
you go.
next time Lisa's gonna have a PA and a sales associate, guys.
Keep me accountable.
That's the goal.
Keep me accountable.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for coming on. We loved having you.
Thanks, guys. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone tuning in. Obviously, hopefully you picked up some amazing stuff from Lisa. There was plenty of great nuggets of information as always. But yep, like and subscribe, follow the pod, and we'll see you guys next time.
Love it.
Cheers.